Good morning, everybody. It's Dan Basse and Ben Buckner back at you. We are looking at markets that are generally weaker overnight. A lot of news related to China, which I'm sure Ben will update us on. But as you think about the week, we came back from the holiday. Normally, holidays are time frames where we see price changes, and we did see the price change this week to the downside. Now, we do have some biofuel news in terms of Reuters reporting about SREs or what we call small refinery exemptions. We're thinking that maybe 2024 exemptions could be out there. But again, there's a lot of uncertainty in terms of biofuel policy, and this is only one source. There's many others that are spreading, of course, their rumors around, and no one knows for sure. This is all under debate. So as we think about biofuel policy, it's hard to get soybean oil much below 45 cents. That's where profitability comes back to renewable diesel and biodiesel producers. So I don't think we fall too far below there. But Ben, tell us a little bit what's going on in your mind here this morning as we head into Friday and the end of the week.
Yeah, I think top of mind today, and why we've seen kind of no action, and you and I have highlighted this, Dan, is we're waiting on trade deal details or something we can kind of sink our teeth into. And the word of the morning, I think, is impasse. That the U.S. and Chinese negotiations do seem to have stalled. The U.S. side kind of suggesting that China's not honoring their part of the very preliminary deal. But in my mind, we don't even know what that preliminary deal entails. And so we're not sure what's been violated. But I think the big picture is that it doesn't seem like we're any closer to working out U.S.-Chinese trade. And we didn't expect this to happen in a matter of weeks, but still we're kind of waiting on the process to begin maybe. And we're getting a lot of questions. And I do think it's important to acknowledge that the demand driver, or the potential for a demand driver 2025 and 2026 probably does center almost exclusively on maybe biofuels, but certainly Chinese imports of food products. So that only happens, I think, if we do get a trade deal. Otherwise, I think the corn market, soybeans as well, we're kind of reacting to at least the lack of threat of dryness in the central U.S. It's more nuanced than that, but drought conditions probably will be pretty minimal June 15th, maybe July 1st, given the current forecast. But I think to us, we're kind of entertaining what happens with demand. And there's been a lot of debate this week about the size of the Brazilian safrinha corn crop, and so the size of Brazil's total corn supply and their potential to export starting August 1st or so. A lot of estimates are now above 140 million tons, but there's also a lot of debate. Some people think maybe CONAB and USDA are still correct. I think at Ag Resource, we're kind of digging into this, and there is evidence mounting to support a higher Brazilian corn number. We have highlighted this in the research this week. Number one, it's been incredibly wet, abnormally wet since April 1st across almost the entirety of the Safrinha belt. So on the left, you see April 1st to May 29th, % of normal rainfall, the Safrinha corn area is highlighted. And so a lot of green. In some places, 300% or more of normal rainfall. And that includes some rainfall this week, which is incredibly abnormal. And on the right, you see vegetation health. So I think digging into this and looking at the evidence, I think it does support some measure of increase from the USDA and CONAB. A lot of places, Mato Grosso do Sul, even parts of Mato Grosso, vegetation health indexes this week are the highest on record. So getting the final number precise will be difficult. We need yield data, but I do think that the risk is that Brazilian crop sizes will be increased, and so too will their exportable surplus and their potential to export second half of this calendar year. And this kind of shows you what's happened in the last really 4 days. So rainfall of 1 inch or better in some pretty key areas of Mato Grosso do Sul. And philosophically, just thinking about this, safrinha yields always capped at 90 bushels an acre, so just because they don't have access to a lot of water during pollination. But 2025 is it different? A lot of places did have access to rain during pollination, so we think that is important when thinking about kernel weights, kernels per ear, et cetera. And does that add up to give us that near record total Brazilian corn yield? Cash markets too. It's the Brazilian market's been kind of slow to work to find demand, but just this week, Brazilian corn is offered on a FOB basis below the United States for August onward, and we're seeing more reliable offers even for July. So putting the puzzle together, it does seem that Brazil will be a pretty sizable corn exporter, again, starting late summer. And that just looks different in the corn market than really the last 8 or 9 months. The U.S. has dominated global corn trade. is that starting to transition, I think, is the question that we all have to think about and entertain over the next couple of weeks. And to that end, we're kind of just thinking about, again, the seasonal transition in price discovery from, old crop to new crop. A lot of this, again, rooted in physical supply. So even the USDA today, assuming normal weather, trend yields in the US and Ukraine, projecting, major export of corn production in calendar year 2025, 612 million tons. That is up 1.5 billion bushels from last year. If you start to sort of work into higher Brazilian crop estimates, you're at 617 to 620 million tons, and you're kind of approaching an increase of 2 billion bushels. That corn will all be available between August 1st and November 1st. So the cash market, barring the weather threat, will be pretty adequately supplied. So just think about that as we think about navigating the markets and managing risk. So the supply debate will be unceasing for the next 100 days in the Northern Hemisphere, but it's the demand component, I think, that we'll be able to put together a little sooner than that. So yeah, lots going on. Dan, what are your thoughts on the market today and as we kind of close out the week?
No, I think, Ben, the corn market stays under pressure. The problem is we just don't have something that the bulls can point at and put their teeth into. I mean, we've got favorable weather here in the Black Sea in Europe. China's maybe a little dry in the North China Plain, but nothing there. So you don't have a supply driver. Now with this new China U.S. demand news in terms of a trade deal and having some stumbles here, this is not good because the window to get a trade deal and then get China active in terms of buying U.S. soybeans or corn in the fall timeframe is narrow. So we'll see what happens, Ben, but I still think the path of least resistance is down. We need to keep some weather premium in the market as we get to the middle or end of June. But boy, if we don't get something positive from the seedings or stocks report, it's all down to Mother Nature as we look forward. So thanks for that presentation, Ben. I thought that was really good. And record Brazilian corn crop followed by a record U.S. corn crop is surely not bullish for the corn market. We always say at Ag Resource, if you get the corn market right, a lot of other good things happen in terms of wheat and soybeans. So just be aware of that. Any final comments, Ben?
No, I think we're going to dig into this deeper. Again, the probability of what stocks or supplies will be come late summer, early autumn. And so again, dollar gets you in for 30 days and kind of be prepared for maybe some new strategies from Ag Resource. So I think that is forthcoming.
Yep. Yeah. No, that dollar opportunity for a month of our research is really something that I think everybody should take advantage of. Have a good Friday. Have a good weekend, everybody. We'll be back Monday morning. Thanks again, Ben, for that great presentation, and we'll be talking soon. Bye, everyone.